This is Luther Emery, former sports editor and former editor of the Evening Independent. And we have here today Tommy Henrich, former member of the New York Yankees, Old Reliable as they called him, and former Sandlot player. Tommy, how did you get started in baseball? First I ever saw you play was in softball. I think you played with the old Huffman Drugs at the time. But how did you go into baseball? What was the first team you played with?
Well, now let me see. About the last, we always had a ball and a bat because of the Agathons. They provided the balls, which we stole. And as far as I know, I was about in the 4th grade when softball came along, and that was a heck of a lot easier to, have softball teams. Start at Sipple Park, and from there on, it was primarily softball with a baseball glove and bat and so forth around, but never any ball games from there on. And as I said, I played softball and played with Huffman Drugs in 1931 and 32.
That was a softball team, wasn't it?
That was a darn good softball team.
That's the first time I ever saw you play ball. It was out here on Overland Road, and I don't know who you were playing, but I pulled up and I didn't know you, but I pulled up my car and was watching, and I saw this ball go out to the outfield, and the guy catch it and wham her in and get the guy trying to come in from third. And I said to the fellow, "Who is that?" He said, "That's Tommy Henrich." That was my introduction to Tommy Henrich. Although you may have played did you play on the Sipple Park softball team? I know your brother Ed did.
Genius, I played when I was, let me get this right now. When I was about 14 or 15, I played on the juniors in the afternoon. I played with the seniors in the evening. And I would hang around and I would play with the adults. If there was anybody missing, I was in there too. As a matter of fact, I'd carry this finger, Luther. Isn't that a doozy?
Yeah.
I got that when I was 16, pitching up there, underhanded, the old form.
Softball, yeah.
And a big color fellow from, it wasn't Willie Edwards, but it was some big fellow from Claytown. And he hammered a line drive back, and I reached for it, no gloves.
Yeah.
And that, naturally, I broke the finger, but never had it set, never missed a time at bat, and that's about as far down as it went. It was cracked, I guess, but I never even paid any attention to it. But that was all softball. And then I played half of a year when I was about, what would I be? Eddie got me a job with J.C. Penney.
That's your brother.
Eddie, he's 4 years older. And we got on that team, and Skip Price, who was the manager of the Huffman Drug Ball Club, and they were a lot better. Somehow or another, he got wind of 2 fellows over there, and he, I'd say, drafted us for the next year. So that's 31 I played with the Huffman Drugs on oh man, that was fun. And in 32, it was a better team. We even got Mike Dragamer in there in 32, and I think we played about 80, 85 ball games. I think we lost 5. And
who were some other members of that team?
Kenny Remley on first base, Bucky Weichert at second base, Bud Walder, shortstop, Bill Bussey at third base, Chuck Cameron in the outfield, Mike, myself, and we had Huey Rudder, and Eddie beat him out at first base, and we had Mike Tomasco and Bob Weltlich pitching, and Urban. Paul Urban was the catcher. And we could hit. Kenny Remley hit 529. I hit 461. Eddie hit 446. And Bud Waller's, the cleanup hitter, hit 400 at least.
Kenny Remley had that chopped.
He was a natural right-hander, and he switched to left-handed, and he could bounce that ball. And if it bounced over 5 feet high, he was on.
Yeah.
And that's the way we normally get started with. Remley always was on base. That's the most fun I ever had, because we were forever winning, and we enjoyed each other's company and so forth. And at the end of the 32 season, the doggone ball club broke up for
Depression, probably.
Yeah, what the heck? I don't know what the heck it was. At any rate, so now what am I going to do? And a guy from East Greenville came along and says, how'd you like to play hardball? And I didn't know what else I was doing. I says, yeah, why not? So I joined up with the Princehorn Dairies, Carl Princehorn, out in East Greenville. And we had a so-so ball club, and I enjoyed it very much.
Dale Krieger played on that team, didn't he? Is that the one Dale Krieger played?
That's the guy, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we had a fellow that lived out Mill Street, First Street now. Paul, I'll get him. Tabling was his name. And he would drive, we would walk to the Conrad Hotel from 10th Street downtown, and he would go, this was when, nobody had any money. And we'd get in the car with him at the Conrad Hotel and drive out to the ball game, out to East Greenville. So we're down there this Sunday morning, and we see some fella sitting there, and we're in uniform already. And the guy says, you going out to such and such a ball game? He says, yeah, we're going out. How are you going out? I said, the guy's going to pick us up. He said, do you mind if we go along? I said, no, I guess that's all right. Eddie says, sure, why not? On the way out, we find out that it's Billy Doyle, a Detroit Tigers scout. And he was going out to scout Had Dye, a pitcher from Canton, who was supposed to be a young phenom. And gee, here's a big league scout going to watch us. When I got out to our ballpark, I went over to Mike Zoop, who was our batting...
Mike, yeah.
Mike Zoop, who was a batting practice pitcher, and he could throw strikes. And I says, hey, I don't want any practice on curveballs. I said, you lay that ball in there, nothing above my... because I'm going to start swinging. And that was batting practice. Then we play the ball game, and I got 2 line drives, the first 2 times up off a Had Die. In the 8th inning, I'm coaching first base, and Billy Doyle comes over and says, how'd you like to play professional baseball? I almost dropped dead. I said, what? He says, I'm going to send you a contract, and you sign that and send it back right away. And he says, and that'll be for next year.
You hadn't even played a big game of baseball yet.
Oh, yeah, sure. This is after, 6, 7 weeks of going by.
I see.
We're playing, yeah.
Oh, I see.
So I got this contract, and I read the thing that says sign and return immediately, and it's for next year to go to Wheeling in the Mid-Atlantic League. I said, gee, that's tying myself up doggone early. I says, but I'm going to get... That's my eyes were open. No, somebody they thought I was had enough talent. First name Julie Myers was the manager of the team. We had batting practice every night, and that's what I wanted. I wanted I got to get going on this thing. Well. Did you ever know Joe Werner?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Joe's father, he worked at the cigar store, Snyder.
Paul and Werner.
Paul and Werner, yeah. That's it. Mr. Werner knew Bill Bradley at the Cleveland Indians, and he got him down to watch a game at Acme Dairies. And I remember, the game started late.
Did you know he was coming?
No way. I didn't know anything about it. And I remember the first time up, they got a dummy playing left field. He's playing me like a pull right-handed hitter. So in other words, he is shaded to the left. And the center fielder is playing me in right center field. So there's a great big hole out in left center field. I says, I'm going to punch the ball out there. Well, I fouled off about 3 or 4 pitches trying to hit it. And I says, you better hit the ball where you can hit it. I didn't know that much about putting the ball in. At any rate, so I swung free and easy, natural. The next ball I hit over the road out there for a home run. No fences. Yeah. We scored about 7 runs in the first inning. The ball game broke up. Art Morningstar was our catcher. Yeah. And there was a collision at home plate where some guy flew into Art Morningstar and they started a fight. This is the 3rd inning. Wait a minute. No, I came up in the 3rd inning or 2nd inning. And again, that same spot's there. So now I try to punch it again. And I hit a line drive right at the shortstop. Okay. So I did pretty good on 2 times the plate. And of all things, the game broke up in a fight. And I ran out to center field. I says, I don't need any of this. And it was late anyway, and I had a date of all things. I had a date with Eddie, the girl that Eddie married, Florence Russ. At any rate, I go home, taking a shower, and their voices on the front porch. And Dad came in and he says, hey, Tom, Bill Bradley's down here. He was a great third baseman of the old Cleveland Indians. I said, what? So I got dressed in a hurry and went down, and he said, I want you to come up to Cleveland, sign a contract. And I said, holy Jiminy. So I went up. I went up to Cleveland in the office of Billy Evans, who was at that time the general manager. I signed a contract to play at Zanesville the next year.
Zanesville Grays.
Zanesville Grays, yeah. That was the old semi-pro outfit that played the Agathons.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had Emmett Kane playing shortstop, and they'd had Homer Kane, a brother, in left field. Things you remember, right? So that's the start of it. Over the winter, and then come next April, I went down to Zanesville, and I went
Were they in the Mid-Atlantic League then?
That's right, yeah.
And I went to nickname them the Mad Atlantic League.
That's right. Yeah, that was very prevalent reference to that league. So I had spring training there, and one after another, they were cutting these guys loose. It looked like you got your ball club set, but I said, just keep hustling. What the heck? And I opened the season with them. I was the last guy of all the rookies that came there. I was the only fellow left on the ball club. And I played 5 or 6 ball games. And I found out that the reason I was playing is because the manager, Harry Lane, was a center fielder, and he didn't think that he was ready to play yet. But in the meantime, they've started a new league at Monessen. Cleveland had it was a Class D league, and that's where they shipped all these promising guys that they thought they had there, and I was the last guy to go. And Monessen knew I was coming a week before I got there. This was all cut and dried, which was okay. I went over there and played ball at Monessen in '34.
Then how long did you play? How many?
I played the whole year at Monessen, and then next year they advanced me to Zanesville, and you remember Billy Southworth, the old manager?
Yeah.
His son was there, and a very promising-looking ball player. And they weren't going to keep him, and I said to myself, that's where I was last year here. That guy deserves to play on this ball club, but they're going to ship him out. And I knew they were going to keep me because I'd had a good year, and they thought, that's what happened, too. So then in '35, I played at Zanesville. Then the next year, I went to New Orleans. And then I wrote to Judge Landis.
You played a whole season in New Orleans, didn't you? Was the second year then that you...
in '36, I played a whole season. Yeah. The only year of my life I played every second of every ball game.
Is that right?
In that heat and that humidity down there. That's right.
Then in '37 was when you got a little wise there.
Well, at the end of '36 season, on paper they said that New Orleans sold me and Ralph Weingarner, who had been a pitcher with Cleveland, and he had finished a year out at New Orleans. They had sold the two of us to Milwaukee for $7,500. And manager down at New Orleans, Larry Gilbert, says, that's a good break for you, Tom. And I thought to myself, that ain't too good a break as I see it. I mean, I hit 346. Yeah. First year I hit 327, and next year I hit 336, and that's close. And the next year 346, so I'm hitting higher.
Yeah,
as a better league I'm going in. So all winter I'm sitting home, and they're not even taking me to spring training. But they were going to take Jeff Heath, who hit 388 at Zanesville in Class C. He was one of Slapnicka's boys. I wasn't. By this time, Slapnicka is the general manager of Cleveland. And I was not elated from the fact that they're not even taking me to spring training. So I remember, man, golly, the winter passed. It got into the winter of '37. I mean, January, February, about someplace along that, I had read in the paper where the Braves were going to buy me from Milwaukee. And I also read in the paper where Cleveland is going to trade Joe Vosmick and a guy by the name of Henrich to the St. Louis Browns. So now here we got two ball clubs are going to sell me.
Yeah.
Which led me to think, what the heck's going on? Who do I belong to?
Who do you belong to?
So I told Dad, I says, you know something? I said, I'm going to write to Judge Landis. And I want to get the lowdown on who in the heck owns me anyway. He says, well, if you think you got the facts or whatever, and he said, do that. About a week later, he said, did you write the letter? I says, no. He says, what are you waiting for? I says, I don't know. And that night, I wrote a letter and mailed it to Judge Landis. And that started the ball, and the date.
Was that before you went up to Milwaukee yet, or not?
Yeah, I hadn't even been there.
You hadn't even been there yet, had
That's
you?
right. This is February now.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's getting close to 1st of March, and I hear from Landis, and he says, well, while we're talking this thing over, he says, you going to spring training with Milwaukee at Biloxi. He says, and I'll contact you down there, which he did. And the owner and the general manager of Milwaukee Brewers and I went over to New Orleans at the Roosevelt Hotel. The Indians were training in New Orleans. The New Orleans Ball Club is in training, and the three interested ball clubs met with Judge Landis, and I was there too. Now we review everything, and Landis was on my side. That's what happened to the darn thing. He didn't like Slapnecker. I didn't know that, but as it turned out, he declared me a free agent, and boom, I'm in.
Were you in Milwaukee at the time? In Milwaukee when
I was in Chicago.
Chicago.
The day before, we're going north. We're going to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
We've broken camp at Biloxi, and we get word Landis wants to see us in his office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in Chicago, and we went in there, and that's where he made the decision. And so now I head up to Milwaukee to get my gear, and I got on a train and pulled into Massillon Friday night.
And I met you at the station.
Here you go. Because it was in Illinois.
I come down. It was in the morning, though, when you pulled in here. Early in the morning. Because I went down.
I'm missing by a day. I must have been declared a free agent on Thursday.
Something like that. Because
and then I got here Friday morning.
Yeah, you got here in the morning because when I get down to the office, I saw on the AP wire where he'd be declared a free agent. And I said to Fred Becker, who was sports editor, I said, and who had been following you closely.
That's right.
I said, that guy's going to be coming in here in this 7 o'clock train from Chicago. I'm going down to get him and get a story from him. So I did. And took you home and met your mother on her way to St. Mary's Church. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And I said to you that at that time, I said, Tommy, there's going to be a lot of guys in here looking for you, and I'm not going to bother you.
That's right. I remember that.
But will you call me when you're ready to sign? And you said yes, and you kept your promise. You did.
Always did with, Fred Becker would call me. He says, Tom, have you signed up yet? I said, no. He says, well, how's it going? I says, oh, I don't know when I'm going to sign up. I said, but I'll tell you this. I said, when I do sign, I said, I'll call you before I call anybody.
Yeah.
And he never bothered me. He was a fine gentleman. Yeah. So that was Friday. We went through the motions. I heard from 8 ball clubs. And I was all in favor of New York, and Dad said, that's a good ball club. They'd won the pennant the year before by 19 ball games. And I says, yeah, that's right. He says, you think you can make the Yanks? I says, I don't know whether I can make the Yanks or not. I said, but doggone, I'm not going to the St. Louis Browns and find out that I'm a big leaguer and be stuck with the Browns. I said, I'll take my chances. I'm going to New York. So he says, that's good enough for me. So we went down to the Conrad Hotel Sunday afternoon and signed with the New York... Johnny Nee, and right on the button.
Yeah, Johnny Nee, yeah.
He'd been following me around 2 weeks in the minors, and I didn't even know it. They knew what... They were aware of me.
Yeah.
They played it pretty cute. So that's the start. That's the start of the... Then I went to New York.
Yeah. how does it feel like a small town boy going into the Yankee Stadium like that? And I think you told me one time about Lou Gehrig kind of being there to meet you or something.
That's right. That's right. Lou was a fine man. He was so gentle about things. There's no big star about him. He was a live and let live type of a fellow. You talk about a young fellow going into the big city and so forth. I got off the train in Penn Station. There's only about a minute walk underneath to the New Yorker Hotel, and I got into New York. I signed in, and the guy said, called a bellhop. He said, take Mr. Henrich's bag, room 3570, something, whatever. And my picture was in the paper. Free agent, signs, Tommy Henrich. Yeah. So this was a wise guy, this bellhop. So we're going up in the elevator. This absolute truth. He said, boy, I'd hate to be in your shoes. I said, why? He says, the Yanks got a lot of good outfielders. And I said, this is the first guy I'm talking to in New York City. And I don't know where I got this gall, but I thought to myself, why, you clown, I says, I'll never see you again. And I said to him, well, they may be pretty good, I says, but you haven't seen me hit yet. You imagine that? And by the way, that guy didn't get a chance to see me hit for a long time. I went out to the stadium, I didn't get in one ball game for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't even pinch hit, I didn't play outfield, didn't get in a game, and McCarthy says, we're going to send you to Newark. And I argued with him. And he broke up the argument by saying, well, I can make you go over there. That's the end of that argument. And I went over there, and lo and behold, what a club they had. They won a James. That's probably the best minor league ball club ever put together. And they had Charlie Keller and Joe Gordon, just to mention two guys having a heck of a year. And McCarthy got rid of an outfielder, and he says, send that kid from Newark back here. I had been over there for 10 days. We were rained out 3 days. We played 7 games. I hit 440. Everything I hit. Yeah. Bouncing balls, getting by infielders, everything was fine. And that's how I got to the big leagues. I took a train to Chicago and broke in the day I got there. So, well, it was some doings.
And played in the World Series that year.
Yeah. 37, beat the Giants. Hubble won the 4th game. We won the first 3. Hubble won the 4th game. And Bill Torrey says, why doesn't he start Roughing and get this over? And McCarthy, he had Roughing, Gomez, Monty Pearson, and they pitched Hubble one day early because they had to. But Terry says, why don't you pitch Roughing and get it over with? McCarthy says, you manage your ball club, I'll take care of mine. He wanted Roughing right, Gomez right, and Pearson right. Only one of us to have a good pitcher out there per day. He wasn't going to hustle anything. So Hubble beat Bump Hadley, and then I think Gomez led off that was that's right. Gomez won the 5th game. So that's 37. 38, we beat the Cubs 4 in a row. Get a load of this. Now I say 1932, I'm a softball player.
Yeah.
Okay? 1932 is the year that Babe Ruth pointed. They say he pointed. I don't know whether they did or not. The pitcher was Charlie Root, and this was a series when they were hollering each other pretty good. So they're giving Ruth a bad time. And with strike 2, he pointed, they say, to the outfield, and the next ball he hit out there. That's a famous home run.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting up at Dad's our house, listening to this thing on radio, 1932. What do you think the chances are, 6 years later, for a softball player to hit a home run
to be out there
off of the same guy playing the same position as Ruth? 6 years later, I hit a home run in the 38th series off of Charlie Root. But he wasn't as good anymore, but that doesn't make any difference.
That's quite a coincidence.
That's what I always said, yeah.
Well, that Yankee outfield that you were in was probably, well, it was one of the greatest outfields in Major League Baseball.
I think so. Yeah. Of course.
Name them.
Well,
I know
you got,
I know DiMaggio, but go ahead and name the
you
others.
got Charlie Keller in left field and Big Joe in center field, and I was in right
in the
field.
right field. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, they were pretty good. Now along comes Mantle, Maris, and Tommy Tresh. And somebody said, it's the greatest outfield I ever had. He says, how do you think you guys would have fared against that outfield? I says, we'll play him. I says, we got the right guy in center.
How many World Series did you play in? I mean, I don't mean games, but how many years?
Well, I played in 4. I was hurt in 2 of them, and Charlie Keller beat me out in 39. Selkirk was having a good year. That's when they beat the Reds 4 in a row. And Keller was the star of that thing. I don't think he hit 3 home runs. But I've looked this thing over, and I don't know what kind of luck or blessing from the Lord that you can receive, but I was with the New York Yankees in uniform for 8 World Series and never got beat.
Yeah.
8-0. Now, there's nobody that can go up as high as 8 without having been beaten.
Right.
So, what the heck, for a guy that was in 1921, I'm rooting for Babe Ruth and the New York Yankees, and here I am joining a ball club that's darn good, and they just keep on winning pennants. And I said, gee, what the heck? What more can you want?
Well, of course, there might have been more, except that your playing days were interrupted by World War II when you were in the Coast Guard.
Yeah, I went in the Coast Guard. Last game I played in New York was, I think it was August the 31st in 42, and the next day I was sworn in the Coast Guard. And now the Yankees got beat that year by the Cards. The Cards were coming. They had a good ball club. And I was out on a boat. What did they call that thing? A 2-masted schooner or something. And we're listening to the ball game, and the guy wants to turn a boat around, so he says, all right, everybody to your station. So I'm up there with a, whatever they call the thing. And the guy hollered up, Kurowski hit a home run. This is 9th inning of the deciding game. I dropped that doggone thing and came back to listen to him saying, Kurowski, broke up the darn ball game. He hit a changeup off of Charlie Ruffing. And at any rate, that's how they lost the game. But I don't know what would have happened if I'd been there. It didn't make any difference. Nobody would know.
Well, you talked about injuries now. That was an unfortunate one of them. One of them was unfortunate anyway, but fortunate too. Isn't that how you met your wife? Huh?
Yes, indeed.
Tell us that.
I tore cartilage in Chicago in 1937. That's why I didn't play in the World Series. Yeah. At any rate, and I staggered along, pinch hit here and there and so forth, but couldn't get in a ball game. I mean, starting lineup. And I was operated on Johns Hopkins in the winter of 37. And the knee, in my opinion, was never 100%. Just never was. I always felt a weakness in there. And by 1940, it's a strange thing. I'm playing good ball in 1940, and we have an uphill battle because we got off losing 9 games in a row, and Detroit is really rolling, but we're catching them. We're really gaining on them. And I told Eddie, I says, this knee's starting to go. I says, I don't know whether I'm going to make it or not. I tore a ligament sliding into second base in Boston. That takes care of that. I went to the hospital in New York, was there for 28 days. And Eileen was not my nurse, but in short order when I was there, I became aware of her. And it didn't take long. That was September, and I came home after the season. I went back there for a dance, and resumed things when I got there in April, and we were married July 7th, the day before the All-Star game, when Ted Williams hit the home run and beat the National Leaguers, the home run he hit in Detroit. Yeah, we got married. That's one of the best years I had. Yeah.
Well, then, of course, your name is prominent with for helping to win a series by striking out.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame. But everybody remembers Mickey on, and I don't tell anybody. You know, I've had some funny experiences with fellas talking to me. He says, "You remember that ball game in Brooklyn when Mickey on dropped the ball?" I said, yeah. Just, gee whiz, that was something. And they go on, and he says, "And then you fellas got some runs and so forth." And I said, "Who was the batter?" He says, I don't know. I says, "I hate to tell you this, but I was up there. I wasn't the batter. I was the swinger."
Well, tell the story here.
Well, they got us 4-3, 2 men out in the ninth inning. They count 3-2 on me. Hugh Casey's the pitcher. And Hugh Casey threw what I think, and by the way, Mickey Owen agrees, it was the best curveball Hugh Casey ever threw. He did not have a good curve. But this ball broke, and it went down, and I'm protecting home plate 3-2. And as I'm swinging, I said to myself, that ball's bad. And I try to hold up. That I can't. I'm too far gone. And it broke down so sharply that, you know, you can think in a hurry. And as I'm swinging at that, I know I've missed a thing. I says, maybe he's having trouble, meaning Owen. And I turn around in a big hurry, and there goes that ball. And man, there was no contest. The ball rolled all the way to the backstop. So then I'm on first base, and DiMaggio hit a screaming line drive to left field. I round second base, and I thought if the left fielder had fired that ball into second base, I'd have been out. But the left fielder was a converted first baseman, Jimmy Wasdell, who I had played with at Zanesville. At any rate, now I'm on second. Charlie Keller is guarding home plate. Strike two, no balls. And on a curveball, he hit not a bullet, but it was pretty well hit, and he hit the top of the screen in right field. Now, ordinarily, a runner can go from first to third on that's no contest, but he can't score. If that ball comes off the screen, you're not going from first to home. But that screen out there is so loose, it's not when a ball would hit it, it wouldn't carry him back very, very far. It was like chicken wire, or a little tougher than that. And the ball that Keller hit out there dropped down, and the base of that wall is about, maybe 18, 20 feet, and it's a hunk of concrete that's about a foot wide. And when the ball comes down from the screen, this one hit that foot of concrete, bounced up in the air a little bit, and those 2 seconds permitted DiMaggio to fly into home plate. I mean, he slid across home plate. It was pretty close. But with DiMaggio's determination and his speed, he threw himself into high gear. He scored. Naturally, Keller got to second. So now they walk Bill Dickey on purpose to pitch to Gordon. Right-hander against right-hander, all that stuff. And Gordon hit a not a lazy ball by any means, but he hit it over Wasdell. Now, Dickey's on first, mind you. Now, he's not fast. But he hit the ball over Wasdell's head. He runs back and missed the ball, carrying off of the field, and there the ball is rolling towards the infield, and Dickey scored from first. So we got 4 runs. My brother was out there. Which one? Art, youngest brother. He was at that ball game. You know, we get them out 1, 2, 3 in the ninth inning. Everybody's stunned, you know. So Art says, the thing I remember is when everybody's leaving, these four dyed-in-the-wool Brooklyn fans are sitting there, and one guy says, "What happened to us today shouldn't happen to a dog." Then we beat them the next day. DiMaggio said in the clubhouse, "They'll never come back from this." That's pretty safe, right? That'd take the starch out of it. Now we're up 3-1 on them.
Yeah.
Well, they had Wyatt pitching the next day. And the final score was 3-1. We got the first run. I think they got the second. No. What the deuce was the final? At any rate, I hit a home run in about the 5th or 6th inning to put us 2 runs ahead off of Wyatt, and he was their best pitcher. But what I'm saying is he had the best stuff. But when they throw fastballs, and I got a pretty fair chance that it is a pretty good understanding that will be a fastball, I wasn't the worst swinger in the world.
That was who you liked to hit best, a fastball.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I made a living on that. So I knocked that darn thing downtown over the right field. Well, that's not too far, though, that right field wall in Brooklyn. But that put us 2 runs up. The reason I remember this is when I got in the dugout, Red Rolfe says, "That's a big run." I says, "I think so, too. 2 runs ahead is a lot more than 1. And Ernie Bonham pitched a beautiful ball game for us, gave him about 4 hits, whatever, and then it's all over. That's got to be the highlight as far as in baseball, anything happening during games. The 41, the feeling I had beating those bums.
That 41, is that what it was?
That's right. That, nothing will top that. I felt DeRocher was the manager, and they had the idea they're going to run all over us because we were nice guys. But it didn't work out that way. So that's what gave me, I said, I couldn't stand to lose to that ball club.
They called you Old Reliable. Who gave you that name, Tommy? You know?
Russ Hodges, I think, was the first. He and Mel Allen were the announcers for the Yankees.
Yeah.
And I think, I've been told this, Russ Hodges says this is what happened. That I never heard of it before. We're playing a game in Philadelphia, 9th inning. We're ahead by 1 run, 2 men out. Our catcher is Ken Silvestri. And Buddy Rosar hits a foul pop fly. And Silvestri didn't even touch the ball. And on the next pitch, Rosar hit it in the seats to tie the game. And you know what W.C. Field says about Philadelphia and all that kind of stuff. You know, nobody likes to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well, and we were going to fight the train schedule. And Russ Hodges says, "Jeeves, there goes the train." In the 10th inning, Rizzuto got on first base, and I put on the hit and run side, and I hit the ball into the left field corner, and Rizzuto scored from first base, and Russ Hodges says, "Old Reliable." And I think that was the first of it.
Prior to that day, I read one story where they called you Babyface.
That was Pat Malone. Absolutely. He did that. And you remember Eddie Morgan, the old first baseman?
Yeah.
You know, when he called me in New Orleans, I played with him when he was finished with the big leagues. He was the first baseman in 36 down there. He called me the little Dutch boy. Yeah, Pat Malone did that.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was tough. Man, if you want somebody knocked down, you just give Malone the ball. He'll get it done for you.
You talked about hitting that fastball. You used to give Bob Feller fits. I remember that.
I just saw Bobby at the Old Timers game up for Sunday, and somebody was talking to him about it. He says, "Yeah," he says, "that's too dumb." He says, I heard Bondi Turner going to throw that fastball by him. I says, "Yeah, that's about the size of it." And I said, "No, you're not." For 2 reasons. Now, Feller had the best fastball. But because I didn't get a chance with Cleveland, they operated like, "We don't want any part of you, and you're only 50 miles from your hometown." I said, a lot of guys have said, "Gee, Crouch, you hurt those Indians." I said, "Well, I don't know whether I did that much or not." I said, "But I'll guarantee you one thing. You never saw me loaf in Cleveland."
Yeah, you used to bring the boys down here, some of them. Lefty Gomez, I remember him coming down with you one time.
Do you know who remembers Gomez coming down here? Paul Brown.
Oh, yeah?
We went out to the Elms. Gomez came down here because I invited him. He's such a wonderful guy. And Chaz thought Gomez was the greatest thing ever happened. So we were out at the Elms.
Chaz is your brother.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
put that
right.
in there for the...
That's right. Yeah, he picked Gomez, Goofy Gomez. He fell in love with Gomez the first year he came up. So I asked Lefty to come down. He's no contest. Yeah, fine. And we went out the Elms. Would you believe we're standing at the bar there having a beer, and some guy came up to Gomez. He says, "Hey, Lefty. Hey, Goofy." He says, knock this piece of wood off my shoulder. Like, you knock it off and I'll cream you. And Gomez says, "What should I do that for?" "Go on," he said, "I dare you to knock this thing in." And Gomez says, "What's the matter with you?" And the guy says, "Well, I will." So the guy hit the piece of wood off him and punched Gomez. And Paul Brown says, "You remember the night out?" Even to this day, he writes. I says, "I sure do." Gomez, now through the years, he says, "Oh yeah, Henrich, nice guy. He invites you down to your hometown." He says, guy takes a swipe at you. Yeah, we had a lot of them down.
Did Brownie see the incident, or you mean
He was there.
he was there?
Paul Brown was. I don't know what it was all about out there, but Paul Brown was out there.
Well, he played a lot of golf out there.
Yeah, he loved his baseball too.
Yeah, he was telling Bob Ebel and I when he was here for the Hall of Fame about how pleased he was at one time you invited him, I think, to sit on a bench at the Yankees.
That's right. He observed McCarthy. I remember that.
He remembered that.
Oh boy. Yeah, he liked his baseball. He was. Did he mention that he was the businessman for a week or two when Benny Fairless was the president of the Massillon?
Yeah.
And the usual treasurer was busy doing something, and Paul Brown,
Just a high school kid.
Yeah, he took over, gathered in the money and so forth. I think maybe that's where he got his training, dragging in the money. Yeah.
What pitcher did you just like batting against the most, or can you single out one?
Well, the worst guy for me, he was not a good pitcher, but I feared him. And when you say you fear a guy, you're talking about you're fearing for your health. And there was a crazy left-hander by the name of Ken Chase. I couldn't hit him. He pitched for Chattanooga. I didn't want any part of him. Then he gets with the Senators, and the same old thing. He's wild, and you get 2 strikes on me, and he had a fastball that was very alive. A ball that looked down the middle, I'd swing at it, and it hit me on the fist. He'd throw one on the outside, and I says, "That's too far out." And the same break coming back in, strike. And then you get 2 strikes on me, and then you're supposed to be pitch careful to a guy. Don't give him a good ball. Well, the ball that he was giving me that was no good might be behind my ear. So when I got up there, man, I was anything but set to bear down against him. And, of course, naturally he wasn't the best pitcher, but Ted Williams picks him as the guy that he didn't want to hit against. So I'm in good company with that. But for a legitimate pitcher, Ted Lyons owned me. Bridges, Tommy Bridges with Detroit had a curveball that, I mean, you talk about a ball, they say, like rolling off the table. Well, that's what it did. That ball broke down so, I never saw a curveball like that. And if all he had to do was get me out and throw that curve, I don't think I ever got a base hit off of it. So those are 2 legitimate pitchers that I didn't want any part of. But a fellow that should not have gotten me out so well was Ellis Kinder. But he was a guy that through all different speeds, some guys got a fastball, and then they got a changeup. But the changeup usually is the same speed. Now, Kinder could take a little bit off, or a little bit more, or put a little bit more on it, and my eyes were not as good as Musial or Johnny Mize or Stan Musial. Some of these fellows could just plain see better than others. Plus, they had a better technique for hitting. But Kinder, I never made good contact with him. I remember in 1949, the last game of the season, we're tied. Whoever wins this ball game is going to win the pennant. Last game of the season. And the first man up was Phil Rizzuto, and he doubled down the left field line, and Williams played it into a triple. He had trouble along the line there. And Rizzuto's on third base with nobody out, and I'm the next hitter against Kinder. I said to myself, now the dumbest thing you can do here is just go up there and do as you've done before. Don't do any thinking, and be a sucker for whatever he's trying to do to you, and pop the ball up or something like that. And I looked at the infield, and Bobby Doerr's playing back, and the first baseman is playing back. In other words, if I hit the ball on the ground, we're going to get a run. They're giving us a run rather than play in. And in the first inning, they don't want you to punch the ball through. Now you got a good inning going. So they're playing back, and I says, that's about as good as I am. I says, I will not put that ball in the air. And I hit about a 14 hopper to Bobby Doerr, and we're ahead 1-0. And that run held up to the 8th inning. It's 1-0 in the 8th inning. They haven't got theirs yet. And McCarthy was managing the Red Sox now in 49. McCarthy has to take Kinder out for a pinch hitter. They got to get a run somehow, and it didn't work. Now they bring in Mel Parnell, a left-hander, and I could hit Parnell better than I could hit Kinder, and I led off the 8th inning with a home run. It wasn't the longest, but it counted. Now we're ahead 2-0, and we scored 3 more runs in that inning, and Rashi's doing our pitching for us, and he got him out. They did score on him, but we won the ball game 5-3. That's for the pennant. 49.
Yeah.
That's a good year.
Well, 50 was your last year.
You're
getting
the knee again.
the knee again.
Yeah.
You're beginning to age, too.
Yeah, you see, I got to tell you about that Gomez. Actually, I was 38. Okay? When I started pro ball, I was 21. I always felt I wasted a couple of years playing softball when I could, I might have gotten it. At any rate, when I was at Monessen, I got on the books as being 18, when in reality I was 21. And that held up all the way.
3 years.
And you know who got a kick out of me being 3 years younger? The girls I went to school with. Some others do. Don't you kid me. I know how old you are. Any rate, yeah, I'm 38 at this time, and the knee is bothering me, and they said, have another operation. I said, if you prove to me exactly what's wrong and that you can fix it, okay. But, Luke, they're doing a lot more for athletes' knees these days.
Oh, yeah, they have the little scope operation,
Yeah. And they actually cure them of it. But I had 2 operations, and neither one of them fixed the thing up quite right. And I thought, well, what the heck, I'm 38, so forget about it.
Then you went into, was it the Tigers, Detroit you went with?
No, I coached for the Yankees in 51.
Oh, is that it?
I coached for the Giants in 57. That's when they went to the West Coast, and at that stage with the children and so forth, I said, I don't want to bounce around again all the way out there. And then 58 and 59, John McHale was the president of, or general manager of Detroit, and I enjoyed that, being with the Tigers for 2 years. And then I said, that's about enough. I had it.
What was your position with the Tigers, Tom?
Coach.
Coach.
Just coach.
And you come back to Massillon, didn't you?
Yeah, I moved from Jersey back to Massillon in '59,
Yeah.
and that had a bearing on it. I says I'm moving back there because with the family the way it is, I don't think we ought to be bouncing around too much anymore. So
You had
that about covers it.
You did some radio broadcasting and
Oh, a little bit, not much.
Some in Canton, some in New York.
Yeah,
And
didn't amount to a whole lot.
and you were with Diebold in Canton for a
That
while.
was a lot of that was good.
Kind of a public relations
Ray
job.
Kuntz over there was a great sports fan, especially baseball. He did not like the New York Yankees, and I was the first of the athletes that he hired. But he was a Washington Senator
Was that
fan, and he is one high-class man. I guarantee you. Got a lot of respect for that
Yes, I
fellow.
remember when you opened your restaurant, the Tommy Henrich Steakhouse in Columbus.
Yeah, a lot of fun down there.
Ray
That's
Kuhn,
right.
I was down to that one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, then, sure, you knew all about him.
Yeah. Yeah, he sent me a picture.
God, he's a fine fellow.
That was that your last work you did, wasn't it? Steakhouse, or-
Practically, yeah. Yeah.
You moved then from there to Arizona, was it?
Well, I came back here, and I moved out to Arizona.
Oh, you were back here a while.
Yeah, I
after
was
that.
back here. I was playing golf at the Elms and so
Uh-huh.
forth. Not doing a whole lot of anything.
Is it
But Eileen, when we went through spring training at 51 at Phoenix, you see, Del Webb owned the Yankees at that
Yeah.
time. That's his hometown. And he wanted to get the Yanks out there just once. So they traded with the New York Giants, and we went in '51 when I was a coach to Phoenix. And when Eileen saw that, she says, "This is America." She says, "This is beautiful." And so all through the years now, Eileen never lost it. She says, "Why don't we move to Arizona?" And finally I says, "Okay, we're going." I said, "But we're not going to Phoenix." I said, "They got all the heat, and Flagstaff gets all the snow." I said, "There got to be a place in the middle." She said, "Is there one?" I said, "Yeah, it's Prescott." And we went through there, and we were both satisfied with the atmosphere there was great.
What year about was that?
75.
75.
Yep.
Yeah, you've been there since.
Well,
Where are your kids at, Tom?
Pat, the oldest daughter, is living at Yellow Springs. You know where Yellow Springs is?
Ohio?
Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
What's that the home of?
Of Senator.
No.
Oh,
Antioch College.
Well, but I was going to look up the president. I can't pull his name out of my head now. That was from Yellow Springs and was the president of Antioch College. Later on, became a senator many years ago.
Oh, my
Quite a few
God.
years ago.
I don't know, but you know Horace Mann was at Antioch at one time?
Is that right?
Yeah. Not in our time, I don't believe.
I don't think.
But I don't know who you're talking about. Well, I'm not that.
I can't think of his name now, but
Well, Pat's down there. She got 3 kids, and they're up in their teens now. And I got another daughter living in Columbus, Mary. I got 2 sons, TD and Paul, out in Vallejo, California. They're in the construction business. TD says everyone's, I didn't give it a, Dad was a plaster.
yeah.
I didn't know from nothing about it, and I didn't care about it, learn anything about it. But TD's doing very well with the thing, and he says every once in a while when he's making a decision on whether he's doing the right thing or not, he says to himself, "Grandpa, is this the right way?" And I got another daughter who lives 25 miles south of San Francisco. That's Ann. She's a, I don't know what they call her, court stenographer or whatever. These machines you take.
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough work. Man. So that takes care of those.
Well, that brings us up to date, I guess.
I think so.
You participated with the old timers last week at
Well, that's...
I bet you enjoyed that, didn't you?
Oh, my God. I spent more time with Kenny Keltner and Gene Bearden. And that was really, it's all fun.
They were both members of the of the team that won the World Series back in 1940, what,
48.
48?
48. And Bearden was the star.
Yeah.
Also, Keltner and Boudreaux on the hitting side in the playoff game.
Yeah.
And Bearden pitched the ball game.
Yeah, he did a lot.
Boy, that...
It didn't amount to much afterwards, did he? After
No.
that year?
No. That's right. He had a darn trick pitch that was... he got by for 1 year because guys were swinging at it, and it was always a sinker, and it was low. And Stengel had seen him in the Pacific Coast League in the year after. Now, Stengel's our manager, and Stengel, in his quaint way of talking, he said, "Look out for that guy, he throws grounders." And that's what it was, a blooming sinker.
Who, maybe this isn't a fair question, but is Stengel a better manager than McCarthy, or...
Not in my book.
You had them both. You played under both of them. You were strong for McCarthy.
I think McCarthy ran the best baseball organization that I ever heard of. We were so well knit. Everybody, it was all high class all the way, led by McCarthy down through his coaches, and there was a real bunch of pros. I mean, it was
you didn't
easy.
Have any bickering between you fellas.
Oh, none at all, none at all. It was easy to fall in with playing baseball for keeps when the lessons were sitting there right in front of you with real bear-down fellows like Red Rolfe, Bill Dickey, Frank Crossetti. Gee, Lazzari was tough. DiMaggio, everybody said probably a great leader. No, he wasn't a great leader. He just follow his actions. That's all. And the way he came out on a ball field, we're coming out for one reason today: to beat you. And part of the beating is going to be I'm going to look pretty good doing it.
Yeah.
He was a very proud guy. But McCarthy ran a beautiful show. Stengel was a little... Well, they were altogether different characters. McCarthy...
personality altogether. Yeah.
McCarthy didn't take any credit, but after Stengel got rolling with the Yankees, it almost became a Stengel show.
Yeah.
With some good ball players. Mantle and Ford. Yeah. Well, I like Casey, but when you talk about who do you think was a better manager, I got to go along with McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. You miss it?
Oh, I think you got to be a goofball to say I miss playing ball when it's staring in the face that your body
and you can't
has reached a point. I've reached a point right now, boy. I may not show up on a ball field again. That's I don't know. I'm 71, and the eyes, man, when they hit an ordinary fly ball out there, and you got to be searching for where is that thing. Or they hit a ground ball to either side of them, and you can't bend down to get it, and you're showing your age to that degree. I think it's a pretty fair idea to not play anymore. And that's...
Well, have you been playing a little bit, Jen?
Yeah, I was in the ball game last year.
I know you're up there in Cleveland, but I mean...
Yeah, I played last year, but I tell you, when you go out there, I say, please don't hit it to me.
Yeah. There's one thing, Tommy, I always admired in you, and that is you never permitted your baseball to go to your head. And the first Sunday about that you were back at Massillon from the Yankees, that you were singing tenor in St. Mary's Choir.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was great. I always have thought that was great. And then, of course, I remember you substituted for Bob Smith and sang with what was it, Tomcats they called themselves?
Tomcats.
And won the state sped squad champ.
That was. You know why Bob Smith wasn't there?
No.
Because he didn't want to miss the Cleveland Browns trip to Miami.
Oh.
He went down there. He was the announcer.
Yeah, he was the Browns announcer. Yeah, Cleveland. Yeah.
And he didn't want to miss that. And what the heck was it? Hap Gowdy.
Hap Gowdy. Yeah.
And Bernie Harmelink. Just passed away, and Al Gretzinger from Navarre, and we rehearsed, we rehearsed the 2 songs we were going to sing. And I told Hap, I said, "Now look, I'm not in your league. I don't want to. I don't want to embarrass you fellas." So he says, "Well, let's give it a try. Give it a try." So we worked out at our house up on Lincoln Way. He says, "That's all right." He says, "You're all right. Let's keep going." And we went down there and we won the state championship. Oh, that was a big thrill. You know, Bob Smith called from Florida that night
to find out
how to, and Hap Gowdy answered the phone. And apparently, Bob Smith apparently said, "How'd you make out?" And when Hap Gowdy says, "We won," he says, Bob Smith says, "What?" And then they said afterwards, he said, "Now we know what's wrong with the Tomcats, but oh, no way. Bob Smith was a great talent. You know that."
Yeah.
But it was a lot of pleasure. That's a great group, non-political all the way. But they've gotten tough. By the way, my daughter joined the Sweet Adelines, the chapter from Dayton.
Oh.
And their first year she joined it, which was last year now.
Yeah.
They went to Minnesota and they're the national champs.
Is that right?
That's right. It's a big chorus now. It's not a quartet. It's a big chorus, but Pat's part of it. Yeah. She's got good talent with music. Got a good ear.
What's her last name?
Patricia. Or Cates. Cates.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether Bob's still recording us or not here.
Neither do I. Well, he can always edit it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
I got my grandchildren here.
Oh.
From California. The 2 of them flew in here 3 weeks ago. Got another week to go yet.
Uh-huh.
One's 7, the other's 11. They're keeping me busy.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Do you remember Jakey Pittler?
The name's familiar. Well, he was with the Agathons, wasn't he?
He was an opponent of the Agathons. He was always a manager, like Franklin or Oil City.
Yeah, that's right. The name was familiar, but now since you mentioned,
Do you remember Johnny Shovlin?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
He was the belt. Always took the belly flopper when he slid to second base.
Now, Jakey Pittler, I remember, and Jakey Pittler became a coach for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I know it. We're playing an exhibition game in Brooklyn before the season starts, and I'm playing first base. I come out there and I'm throwing the ball around to the infielders, loosening up, and I hear a voice right in back of me say, "Hey, Massillon, what are you doing out here?" Just like that, I says, "That's that Pittler." And I spun around and I looked right at him and I says, "Johnny Shovlin's looking for you." And he almost fell over. He says, "What do you know about that?" I says, "I know an awful lot about it. He used to agitate Shovlin. Boy, he'd make Johnny Shovlin so mad." Then I get acquainted with Jake, and he says, "You know, Tom," he says, "the last job that Johnny Shovlin had, I got it for him." I says, "Well, I'm sure glad it's a happy ending to that thing." But, oh, genius. I used to go down there and watch those ball
Those are
players.
big
I thought
rivals.
they're the greatest ball players that ever
Yeah,
lived.
they were big rivals, Oil City and
Whoa, I'll
Franklin,
say
you
they
know.
were. Yeah.
We had real good baseball here at that time.
Oh,
There was a-
jeez. Whitey Hartle.
That was another one.
Ooh. Remember Earl Blackburn?
Blackburn.
They beat
yeah.
the Braves. The Agathons
Yeah.
beat the Braves.
Yeah.
And George Stallings or whoever was the Braves manager, and Blackburn had an awful lot to do with it. You know, Earl went to the Braves and didn't last very long with the
Yeah.
Braves. You know, he always had a weight problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it took him, he needed somebody almost to pull him down to first base.
Yeah.
And
So Earl put out a heck of a lot of effort, and they beat the Braves, and somebody said afterwards to Stallings, let's say that was the manager, I'm not sure it was. He says, what do you think of Blackburn, George? He said, if he'd have played that way for me, he said, he'd still be in the big leagues.
Although Blackie could really fire a ball down to second base.
Yes, he
couldn't
could. Yeah.
Never raised himself off the ground at all.
Yeah.
Had a great arm. Yeah, he wound up over at Mansfield, you know, for a long time.
Yeah, he was a guard.
Yeah. Used to come over there.
I met him.
Hopefully come over here to our football games.
Yeah.
I had him in the press box a couple of times.
Yeah. You get a lot of mileage out of talking about Fothergill to fellows that remember.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what Bill Dickey said about Fothergill?
No.
He said he's the greatest line drive hitter he ever saw.
Well, he used to take their hands off down there in base. Didn't
What do you think of that?
That was Bobby through. He was done playing when you went in.
Oh, yeah.
He-
Yeah.
Early 30s or maybe
That's right.
late 20s or sometime.
Yeah.
Early
Boy, I'd
30s.
like to
I think
see-
he maybe in 30. I bowled in a league that he was in. I wasn't on his team, but Bobby.
Don't tell me he could bowl, too.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's a
He
good
could
bowler.
drop kick a football.
Like 70 yards sometimes. Yeah, he bowled, and he'd put on the weight during the winter, and then he'd go down to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and thaw out there, try to trim down to the excess fat before they go. But they always called him fats. I think,
That's right.
At Detroit,
Yeah,
they called
but
him Bobby here.
with all of that weight, he was still agile. I mean, they tell me that he hit a home run in Fenway Park, and as he's approaching home plate, he did a front somersault.
I heard that. Yeah,
Landed right on home plate.
yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Gee, monies.
Well, you saw him when he played with the Agathons.
Sure, yeah. Not a whole lot, though.
No.
Not a whole lot. Remember him playing football. Especially that when the kids were all over the field at halftime, and Bobby would be out there drop kicking and
Yeah,
putting on a show.
yeah. He was a good football player.
Guess he was. Mike Tracy told me about him. Yeah,
My brother-in-law.
yeah.
Yeah.
Smooth bowler, wasn't he?
Well, I believe Mike was on that team of, I think Mike and Toe David and Bobby Fothergill, and I'm not sure whether Amy Barton
Frank
was on
Bass?
there. Probably Frank Bass, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They had a good team. Good bowlers.
Mike Tracy says they're saying, "Hey, Bobby, do you think it's about time to get to bed?" Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So they said, "Well, it's getting late." He says, "Who's pitching tomorrow?" He says, "Yulee, their best pitcher up at Cleveland."
Yeah.
That didn't faze Bobby. He says, "Yulee." He says, "I can hit him anytime I want to." And he got 3 base hits the next day. Okay, now I met George Yulee at a banquet at Cleveland. And George Yulee, of all things, and I know he's a tough guy, and George Yulee is coming around the table with ball players just recently quit playing, old-timers. And George Yulee is there getting an autograph for his granddaughter. And I thought that was pretty darn good. It was, a different image. So I don't know him, but I couldn't resist. I said, George, I said, could Bobby Fothergill hit? He says, could he hit? He says, you know what he did with me one day? He says, he told me before the ball game, he says, I'm going to get 2 base hits off you. And he says, and he got 3. Now, you do that to Yulee, they tell me that he was mean. He says, could he hit?
Was that this last old-timers meeting?
Oh, no. That was many years ago that Yulee was doing this. But he's still living. He's got to be over 90, I think.
He must be up close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great pitcher. He pitched for the old Cleveland Tellings or something like that before he came into the Indians. Were you laughing?
Tellings? Doik Navario.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear this story? This is supposed to be true. The Tellings ice cream outfit from Cleveland was a good ball club.
Yeah.
Doik is the manager. Benny Fairless goes over to Canton to scout the Tellings to find out how do they look and so forth. And he thought that's a good looking ball club. So the game is over now. Now what Benny Fairless wants to do is sign him up to come over here.
Mm-hmm.
So Doik is carrying on. Oh, I got this story from Doik.
Oh.
I got this story from Doik. And he said, and I'm standing there talking to some guys, and Mr. Fairless came up and said, Doik, how would you like to come to Massillon in a couple of weeks? And Doik said, man, that sounds pretty good, sure. So Benny Fairless is supposed to have said, how much do you want? Now, Doik is talking to some guys, and he raised his hand. He just raised his hand with his hand spread apart. And Benny Fairless says, 500? He says, you got it. Okay? So now Doik Navario, he remembers this, that he put his hands outspread like that. And Fairless says, 500? You got it. So now they come down in a couple of weeks, and the Tellings drew like crazy here. They had people all over. One of those times, where they put people in the outfield?
Yeah, sure.
Must have had 3,000 people there. And Doik Navario says, I took a look at that crowd, and he says, it's the first time in my life I wish I'd have had 8 fingers on one hand. You mean you got all this?
One fellow, Tommy, we probably should have brought up, and he's still in Major League Baseball, the teammate of yours, and that's Yogi Berra.
Okay.
You have a lot of stories on Yogi.
Oh, there's many stories about him. I think Garagiola makes up some, but they're still the same kind of a guy that Yogi is, and he's very quaint. But I'll tell you, I don't know how many years he played. Let's say 18, and nobody ever figured out how to pitch to him. There is no way to pitch to Yogi because you say, Yogi, how do you hit? He says, I just stand up at home plate and the guy throws a ball. If I like it, I hit it. How are you going to figure him out?
Yeah.
He is a smart baseball man. I made the remark to a guy, Yogi Berra is the only man that I can think of that I never saw make a mental error on a ball field.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, his judgment has been just superb. That's all there is to it. But you listen to the guy talk, and he says, gee, man, I think my best, this is kind of typical. I mean, there are several stories that you don't hear, but this one just kind of grabs me. Pearsall, had mental trouble with Boston. He goes to some rehabilitation center, and he's cured. Apparently he's cured, and he comes back in a couple of years. Now he's playing again for the Red Sox. Okay. He comes up to the plate. No, first of all, the leadoff hitter is Jackie Jensen. And let's say Allie Reynolds is pitching for New York. And apparently Reynolds pitched inside to Jackie Jensen a couple times, and they got him to pop the ball up for the first out. And the next guy is Frank Malzone. And they treat him the same way, and they got him out. The next batter is Pearsall. And he came up and he said, listen, you little dago, you better not pitch me inside like that. He says, you do. He says, I'll wrap this ball bat right around your neck, and I'll plead temporary insanity, and he says, and I can get away with it. So, Yogi, that doesn't faze Yogi. Yogi just looks like he says, we don't knock down 250 hitters.
That's pretty sharp.
Oh, that's what I say.
Quick retort.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was the oddity was the way he talked, wasn't it?
Oh, sure.
Is that how did he get the name Yogi? I wonder.
I don't know. I don't know. But yet he could say, in a few words, he could make sense, and you listen to him and you say, how did he come up with that stuff? Like, he's going to play left field, World Series. And I know from having played there a couple of times that, and listen to ball players, that there's a haze that gathers around home plate. Maybe it's smoke. I don't know what kind of smoke, cigarette smoke or whatever, but there's a bit of a haze, maybe humidity also. But naturally, the sun has gone down earlier, and which brings it on faster in October, let's say. But at any rate, somebody is saying to Yogi, he said, what's so tough about playing left field in Yankee Stadium, World Series time? And Yogi simply says, oh, he says, it gets late early out there. It gets late early. And that's what it does. That's a pretty fair sample of it.
And now he's got the top job in baseball, you might say.
Yeah, he wants one thing, to be a World Series winner as a manager.
Yeah.
And he comes right out and says so, because he's got everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else. And the day he joined the ball club, DiMaggio saw him at home plate, and he says, what have we got here now? Right? When you take a look at it, that's a big leaguer.
Yeah.
Jeez. Boy, he was amazing. Yeah, and a likable guy. Not a mean bone in his body. Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Well, it's been great talking to you again.
Luke,
yeah.
It's always a lot of fun to talk with you. Yeah,
no,
we've reminisced a heck of a lot here.
Yes, we have. And this will be one for the archives, I guess.
I guess most of it's true, isn't it?
It's supposed to be. I don't think I exaggerated any, and I don't think you did, because I followed you down through the years, and you're one of our memorable citizens.
Well, it's all because of baseball, I'm sure of that, and I'm a pretty contented guy, thinking of the years that I put in. It's something that I love to do.
Yeah, that's right.
And all over the darn place, any old place you go, where are you from? I'm from Massillon, Ohio. Oh, yeah. Most of us is, Paul Brown's town.
Yeah.
It's a very nice place.
It's got
a lot of tradition.
Yes, when I got my discharge from the Army, the fellow handed it to me. He looked, he said, Masson, that's home with Paul Brown, isn't it? He didn't say Tommy Henrich. Well, with that, we'll end our conversation, Tommy.
Okay, Luke.
It's been a big pleasure.